This is part 2 of the Building an Interactive Android App unit. In this video, we're going to take a look at logging. Logging is the ability to put messages in your code that will only be displayed in the Logcat console. Logcat is this panel here down at the bottom where you see a bunch of messages, and you can actually add to these. You can create your own specific messages with whatever data you want to see, and you can monitor your program's execution with these logging methods. All right, but one of the reasons that we specifically want to look at logging at this time is because of a problem with the GeoQuiz app. I'll show it to you now. If we kind of step through some of these questions and we stop, let's say, for example, on this fourth question here, and I rotate the device, notice that the question reverts back to the first question. All right, that is inconsistent behavior. Whenever we rotate the device, we want to make the content remain. We don't want to change the content. We may want to reposition the buttons and the controls and the displays somewhat, but we don't want the content to change. We want the content to remain the same. All right, and this problem exists when we're going back from landscape mode to portrait mode. As you can see here, once again, we're back to the first question. The way we're going to address this question or this problem is we're going to look at activity states. This diagram depicts the states that an activity will go through during its lifetime. This is called the state transition diagram because it has states and it shows transitions between the states. The states are the blue round rectangles, and the transitions are the lines between the rectangles. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a green start dot, and that's where an activity begins its life. An app will start, and it'll create an activity, and onCreate will be called within the activities class. And then it'll immediately go through to the started state, and it'll call onStart on the way to the started state. Most of these states are just kind of conceptual. The app doesn't really, or the activity doesn't really stop in any of these states except for resumed, paused, and stopped. In the other states, the activity just kind of flows right through them. So every time an activity transitions to a state, it'll call one of these functions that is indicated on the arrow line. So when an app starts up, onCreate will be called, or the activity starts up, onCreate will be called, then onStart, then onResume, and at that point the app is visible and in front, and then the user can interact with it. If the user sends the app into the background, let's say, for example, presses the recents button or presses the home button, the app will be paused, or rather the app will go through the pause state and go to the stop state. If an app is interrupted by some kind of notification, then it'll go into the pause state, and and then onPause would be called, for example, in that case. If the user brings an app to the foreground from the recent screen, it'll go from stopped to the started state, and on the way to the started state, it will call onRestart and onStart. So if you want to do anything between two transitions, between two states, you would put your code into that method that gets called when that transition occurs. All right, and the thing that we're going to discover with rotations is that when we rotate the device, the activity actually gets destroyed. So It gets destroyed in its current orientation and then gets recreated in the new orientation. And we're going to use logging commands, logging methods to show how these transitional methods get called. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at activity states, we want to display using logging methods what states our activity goes through. And the way to do it is we're going to make all of these modifications to our to our quiz activity class in Java. The first thing that we have to do is we have to add a tag. And a tag is simply a string. It's a private static final string. It's private in that no other class needs to look at it. It's static in that it doesn't need to be allocated every time we instantiate an instance of quiz activity. It's going to be common to all instances of quiz activity. It's final because we don't want this string to change. Okay, it's going to have the same value throughout the lifetime of the app, or the runtime of the app. It's a string, and its name is going to be tag in capital letters by convention. All right. The value of the tag is going to be the name of the class in capital letters, also by convention. All right. Now that we've added this this tag, and the reason for the tag is that it'll allow us to easily find and filter messages that are related to the quiz activity class in the logcat console. All right, so now that we've added our tag, we're gonna make a log message call, and we'll do it right here in onCreate. There are several types of, or several categories of log messages. The one that we're going to use almost all of the time is going to be the debug message. The message that appears, this message will only appear when we are debugging our app. It won't appear when we when we build and release our app for public use. And that's important because we don't, if certain log messages can be seen in release versions of your code, you never want to include those because it gives potential competitors the ability to reverse engineer your code. So we're just going to stick to debug. All right, and so I'm just going to type in the essential syntax. I'm sorry, it's a capital D. The first takes two parameters, a tag and a custom message. And so the tag is going to be the tag that we just created, and the message is usually the name of the method from which this log call is happening. And you know what? I'm just going to put a colon there and a space, and we may fill that out with something else. But we'll just leave it as it is for now. All right. And so now we have a log message. So whenever we enter in onCreate, we're going to see a log message in logcat. All right. And we'll run that in a little bit. But you know what? While we're editing the code, let's add the log messages for each of the transition methods that we saw in the activity state transition diagram. All right, and the way we're going to add all of those methods is we're going to right-click. We can right-click anywhere within the quiz activity class, but I'm going to put these methods at the end, and we're going to have Android Studio automatically generate these overridden method definitions right here in our class. And the way to do that is I'm going to right click right there at the end. I'm going to select generate from the pop-up menu. I'm going to select override methods, and I'm going to select, I think six of the methods that we saw in the diagram. And so start and stop, I clicked on start, and I'm going to command click or control click on stop. I also want on destroy. We also want on pause, resume, on pause, on resume, and on restart. And they're a little bit further down here. Here's on pause. Here's on resume. Okay, so we have on pause, on resume, on start, on stop, on destroy, and we only need one more. That's going to be restart, and that is right here. All right. Now I'm going to click OK, but before I click OK, I want to make sure that copy Java doc is clear. If you check that, you're going to get a lot of documentation. It's going to really increase the size of your source file. We're going to leave that out for now. We want to include the override annotation, this @override keyword. That will inform the compiler that we are overriding the versions of these methods that are defined in the activity superclass. All right, so I'm going to click OK. And we see that all of these methods were added to our quiz activity. Now I'm going to put log messages in here so that I can see when each of these transition methods gets called. There's an easy way of entering in log messages, and that is if you use the live template feature. I'm just going to type in log D and press tab, and it automatically produces the log message in the format that we want. And I'm going to do that for each of these. Okay, one more. No, two more. There we go. Great. Now, if we run our app here, we should see these messages in the logcat. And sure enough, we see three right here. Okay, we see quiz activity on create, quiz activity on start, and quiz activity on resume. Now, if you recall from the diagram, these are the messages that get called when the app, or the methods that get called when the app first starts up. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of other messages in here, and we're gonna filter those out, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But first, I want to display, or I want to show you rather, how the what's causing this reversion to the first question problem. And it turns out that the problem is related to the fact that whenever we rotate the device, the activity actually gets destroyed. Okay, and we can see this right here. When we rotated the device, we went through the on pause, on stop, on destroy sequence, which effectively destroyed the previous activity, the activity that displayed in portrait mode. Then we went through we went through this creation sequence for the new activity in landscape mode. And whenever we recreate an activity, its instance variables get reinitialized, and that's what's reinitializing the current question value, the current index back to 0, and that's what's causing the first question to redisplay. All right. Let's maybe verify that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use the filtering feature here to limit the output to just those log messages that we added. All right. First of all, I'm going to select the logging level to debug, which is what our log messages are, their debug level. And you can see right away, it reduces the amount of output. All right, it makes our log messages more visible. There's still some other debug log messages in here. We're going to get rid of those as well. I'm going to type in some string that is unique to our log messages, and that should be quiz activity. All right, and so now we only see the messages that have been printed out from our app. And now if I rotate the device back to portrait mode, we're going to see, after this on resume here, we're going to see another sequence of on pause, on stop, on destroy, and then on create, on start, and on resume. All right, so let's give that a shot. Okay, and sure enough, we have this new sequence, and we can tell where the new sequence starts because the number of seconds is significantly larger, the minutes and seconds. So see, the last output was at 3:32, and then this new output is at 5:55. So that's the issue. That's what's causing this problem. Now, and we'll deal with that in the next video. One of the last things that I want to show you here is that you can save a filter. If I clear this filter, I can create a filter that I can save and use over and over again. So, for example, I just clicked on the last, in this rightmost drop-down menu. I clicked on Edit Filter Configuration, and that brought up this dialog box, and it gives me various sections or aspects of log messages that I can filter on. So, for example, I can filter on the log tag. So I can put in quiz activity, log level as well, debug, process ID if I wanted to track the process ID, the message text, the name of the package, etc. I'm just going to save that. That's going to be enough. I'm going to call this quiz activity and click OK, and you'll see that it automatically starts filtering. And now I have a filter named quiz activity that'll be there whenever I come back to Android Studio with this project. All right. So that's about it for logging, and we will deal with the rotation problem in the next video. Thanks for watching.